Hey y'all, I'm Sunny Shell, and tonight we're going to talk about geology with Nattiegnat. She's a working geologist, has a degree in geology and a minor in archaeology, and she's currently working on her master's in soil science. If you're a patron, you can receive a link and join us on the show. Be sure to ask your super chat questions and they'll get top priority. And don't forget to subscribe. Now let's sit back, buckle up, and get to the sunny spot on Skeptic Haven. Hey everyone! Yay! I'm so excited about our show tonight. So, you were on a while back and we had a great conversation and we kind of went into a whole bunch of different places and that's something I
I don't
really
even remember
love.
what we talked about. Go back
Well, we
next.
just had a good time, so.
Well,
So, first of all, thank you so much for coming back and
fun.
being with us.
No,
Is there
it's
any
fun.
updates that you want to share? Any updates with geology or your life or anything else you want to share?
Oh, thesis writing and headaches and things, and then also I adopted a dog. I have a new dog.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm going to warn you right now, like my other dog's wonderful. She doesn't bark, doesn't make any noise, but and Xena, and now I have Raven, who is an 11-year-old German Shepherd Lab mix, who is going to be released to a kennel. And
Oh.
I grabbed her before that could happen because she just needed love, and she likes to cry a lot. So if you just hear like squealing, just she
Well,
doesn't just squeak. Like after this.
oh,
So I'm
well, I
sorry.
have my mom had befriended just a random cat that came around. He is kind of feral, but there's some things about him. I think he might have been in a home at one point, but he purrs louder than anything I've ever experienced. And so I had to take him out of the room because otherwise you would hear nothing but like a motor in the background. So
Oh
I
yeah,
get it.
the purring gets loud. Yeah, that's
Yep.
yep,
So
that's the thing. It's okay.
so tonight we're talking about geology. So I figured we would just start kind of as a refresher from last time and just in a broader sense, what is geology?
Geology is the study of the earth. It's the study of everything from every rock you see to the air we breathe to our gravity, the gravitational orbits, the way the earth moves, the way that and I some people get grumpy at me when I say this, but it's where we are in space as well. And so I know astronomers are just like, no, that's different than geology, but we even use the term geology in xenogeology, talking about rocks on other planets and how those planets accept and function within their specific environments and ecosystems. So geology is kind of I like to say it's a study of everything, but the more accurate term would be the study of Earth and its processes. So
That's really cool because but we talked last time about some of the ways that geology or the things that geology touches on that would surprise people. We're going to talk about that some today, but I figured we would just start with some of the branches of geology.
okay, so let's do a wide I guess for those that are in the chat and everything, a wide aspect of geology would be, study of rocks. Everyone's like, okay, rock nerds, we get it. Dirt, rocks. Oddly enough, soil itself isn't in geology. It's actually agronomy, and agronomy goes into botany, which is under biology. Which is there's a lot of fighting and speculating back and forth between biologists and geologists when it comes to soil. So because they're very much intermingled. Um, you end up with, let's see here, studies of the ocean. So you end up with oceanography. Let's just see if I can just list them. Let's like before you put that chart up, because I know you have it, but I'm going to see how many I can list. So sedimentology, what lies under sedimentology? Sedimentology will have fossils. So paleontology, vertebrate and invertebrate, those are like dinosaurs, all that fun stuff. Sedimentology also studies movement of rock through wind and erosion and weathering. So that kind of moves us into the study of mountains, right? Mountain building events. So then you end up with tectonics or volcanology, and then tectonics as a whole, metamorphic petrology as a whole, igneous petrology. Let's see here, mineralogy. Hold on. Geochemistry goes into specifics behind minerals themselves and what you want to do. You can end up doing lapidary studies, which is like the cutting and forming of gemstones. Mining. That's kind of going towards the rocky side of it. But then if we go back towards oceanography, environmental, there's environmental geology. There is historic geology, which is a fun little counter-gnome, because history itself is supposed to be from man on, but using historic geology it's really just like understanding the history of our Earth. What am I missing? There's stratigraphy, but there's I know I'm missing a bunch right now. Let's pop that up really quick and I can kind of talk about the ones that I'm missing, because I know I'm missing a chunk. Glaciology, hydrogeology. There we go. I knew I was missing some. So that's the sediments and rocks. So glaciology is the movement of glaciers. Hydrogeology is the movement of water. So like rivers, lakes, etc. Lithology is the movement of rocks from one point to another. Sedimentology is literally sedimentary rocks. Surficial geology is stuff on the surface. Bedrock geology is stuff under the surface. Tectonics. Volcanology, it's volcanoes. Seismology, earthquakes. Neotectonics is how the tectonic plates move. Technophysics, physics, which is how they move, and like a lot of quantum physics involved in that and why they move. Seismotectonics is how they move and how they interact with each other, boundaries. Natural resources. Petrology, that goes into oil. Mineralogy, that's the absolute smallest you can go into crystalline forms, and then discussing that. Gemology, which is where the lapidary stuff comes from. Crystallography, which is how the crystals form. Soil science, that's what I'm studying. Geology, which is what's under our feet but not quite to the bedrock. Edaphology, which I believe is the breakdown of rocks and as they move. Edaphology is something I haven't really messed with very much, but it does get into agronomy, which is where soil science kind of falls in, which is farming. And agroology, which is the movement of water and having to get it into farming practices. Chronology, so geochronology would be, age in order of sites within Earth. Paleoseismology is fun because it's the study of earthquakes in the past and how you can find them and how, like, at what point in time did they occur. Magnostratigraphy, literally looking at iron bands and finding out north-south polarization and seeing if certain things match up versus not matching up, and seeing if there's polar shifts that occur, or at what point the Earth was in the not the Wilson cycle. What am I thinking of? What point the Earth was within its polarity, so that you can see how much a continent or a bedrock has shifted based off of how it's polarized from that time period. Paleontology, fossils. Stratigraphy, the layers. And then the micropaleontology, which is something that people are kind of glance over a lot, but that's the stuff that's like viruses within rocks that have
how cool,
which is crazy if you throw at it. Orography, which is I want to say that's left behind water stuff, but I'm not actually sure. Orography, this is how in depth this is. And then the high symmetry is the same. I'm not absolutely positive about that, but I'm pretty sure it's just like the leftover formations from like what affected water, and then one that affected air. Geography itself, which turns into politics, and then geomorphology, which is literally how the land is shaped. So you end up with all these things. And then I would argue that meteorology should be in there as well. Yeah. And oceanography,
oh my gosh,
and ocean sedimentology, and getting into paleoclimatology, climate as a whole. That's there's all sorts of things that you can do with geology, and it's no matter, it seems like no matter what science you're in, if it's something that has a standing or a long standing history or impact on the earth, you can measure it or study it via geology, or you'll have to use geology as a reference for it. Oh, there
Okay,
it is. Yeah. Orography. It's or yeah, orographic. That makes more sense. It's orogeny. Remember when I said orogeny? Orography. Yeah. Study
there
of
we go.
I normally
That's so cool.
look at that and see petrology as a whole, because that's, but yeah, mountains literally orographic. That makes more sense. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I look more at, I don't look at mountains very much. I'm now living in them though. I look
So,
at geology though.
how in the world do you manage to narrow your focus enough to like do work? To choose what you're going to do?
Oh, that it's hard. It's really, really hard. And that's not a geology joke. Like it's let me give you an example, okay? So in school, I planned on studying a loess formation, or a loss formation, which is LOESS. It is a formation on a hillside, that the hillside, the sediments and the layers of sedimental of sedimentary soils, they show windblown aspects. They're not built from degrading rock. They're built from rock that's weathered and has been blown over and becomes like this mound. And you end up having plants and such. And so you end up with like layers of like dead stuff, and then wind blown, and then dead stuff, and then wind blown, right? And I was like, this is cool. I'm going to do an undergraduate study discussing a loess formation. This sounds neat. We go in there, we pop a hole, third hole we dig, just to get like a baseline of the thickness of the varying levels. And we find a Clovis point. Suddenly my project turned into an archaeology project. And I was like, oh no. So we bring out a bunch of students, and we're all looking at stuff, and like, I mean, they like, it turned into an archaeology project, and I'm just sitting here like, I just wanted to look at soil. and there's rocks coming up, and we're finding all these artifacts, and so suddenly there's a site. So like my undergrad, like my minor in archaeology, complete accident, absolutely not meant to happen, but did, because of the things I had to know in order to understand what was happening at my site, and the age of my site, and when things were going on. Because it's an old site, but it was only like 6,000 years old, which is not very old in the aspect of geology, but like super old in the aspect of like looking at like people. So it's like, oh, people were here 6,000 years ago, and like all the archaeologists are like, it's 6,000 years old, and I'm just like, that's less than a blink of an eye in geology. Like, that's not very old.
Was it exciting though? I mean, I know it wasn't what you intended to do, but wasn't that kind of exciting?
Oh yeah, it was cool. I was like, hey, I found a thing. And as soon as I opened my mouth, I'm like, I wish I hadn't, but I'm glad that I did, because I learned a lot more. Like another university got involved and sent their students over, and there was a bunch of volunteers that came out, and I have like 4 or 5 boxes of just paper in regards to note taking, in regards to like the structural layers, as they would like go meter by meter, like square meters, as they would dig down layer by layer and find things. So, and then we found this old barn on top of everything else. So there's like this 1800s barn that's sitting on top of this old site. And the thing is, something that you'll notice with archaeology is when you find a nice place to have a picnic and you want to sit down, you're probably not the first human to think that at that location.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
On that, because everybody's like, that's a nice view, I'm gonna sit down. Guarantee you someone else has done that in that spot. that's the easiest way to understand that you are probably on a site, is or if the site is where it's supposed to be versus where it's if it's moved. So then you get into like, yeah, it's then archaeology ends up pulling from geology. Like, it's just like, it's everything's associated with geology. Everything is. You have to pull from it in every way. I mean, manufacturing, what materials are you working with? That goes into mining. Where are you at? Geology. So petrology is a huge part in manufacturing and industrial. If you are in a medical situation, you're like, oh, this has nothing to do with it. Say you have asthma. Great. So someone is like a pathologist or somebody, not pathologist, because that would mean you were dead. I don't know the biology terms. The person that would work on someone with bad lungs, I don't know them. See, I don't do the biology stuff, but someone,
I don't know either.
oh, you have allergies to this type of pollen. Cool. This type of pollen occurs at this time. That's botany. Botany has to pull like, well, why is it in this area? Well, that has everything to do with biomes and climate, and then that's from climate you pull weather patterns and everything that's happened within that area and why it's like that, and then you end up going back a couple 100,000 years and you end up discussing the different pulmonologist, maybe, I don't know. Skeptic Haven. I was like, you guys know that I'm going to say stupid things. Please, the lung doctor. Yeah, we'll go with that. But yeah, it's just everything just kind of like if you dig deep enough into any scientific need, you end up in geology. And I do say this knowing for a very, very strong fact that is a pun.
Oh my God. Okay, so as you were talking about all the different branches, I know this, but I didn't even think about it when I was preparing for the show. Is volcanology. I mean, I love volcanoes.
Yeah.
I'm one of those geeks that loves to look at volcano videos and just watch the lava flow and go to the Geological Society of
Society of America, GSA, or you can do the USGS, and they have active volcanic videos, like different sites. You can see the last eruption, you can see the last seismic event, so that goes into the earthquake stuff. You can see the regulation of it. You can know exactly like how hard it hit at the surface versus the impact versus like the measuring, like versus where it actually hit, or like if it was way the hell over here in a tectonic, and then like for some reason this is the city that got it because that's the wavelength that went out fast enough to hit that point first, which means that there's more wave, or I guess less wave resistant rock formations to allow a wave to hit something here versus right above it, and it's just
I absolutely
means there's limestone around there. Limestone acts like rubber; it slows things down.
It's so cool. I mean, when I watch that, I'm interested in the videos of the lava. I'm interested in watching them fly their helicopters over. But I also love to see all the graphs and the things that they put up where they can measure all the things that you were just talking about, because even that is interesting. It's just the coolest thing, and it's right there for everybody to see.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's part of your taxpayers' money, but like not a very good part because we don't get that much funding, but we should.
That is so true.
We're the reason why there's potholes in the road. Not the reason, but we're the ones. If you don't talk to a geologist before you put down a road, and they say, "Hey, use this material," and you use like some cheap material. And they're just like, well, we told you so. And like not even a year goes by and you got like giant cracks and divots in it. It's like, well, that's settling. We warned you.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. So this is a stupid question now that we've gotten this far, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's going to be fun. So how is geology important to society?
We make it function. Granted, no, people make society function. However, understanding the resources you have at hand in their most primary source material allows you to be able to function as a society, to know where things flow. Like if you know your water source and you know that your water's bad, you hire a geologist, an environmentalist, a water quality technician, a bunch of people to come out, and they will find out where along the lines, because you trace it back to the source, right? And if the source itself is hurt, then why is it hurt? What's going on with it? So like what kind of, like, was there a random, I was about to say, was there a random septic spill that just like went straight into the river? And you're like, oh no, E. coli everywhere. And it's all gross now. really pay the education and knowledge and get the funding that I know, right? Oh,
Yes. Okay, let me find that one because we'll put that one up. That's so true.
that's so true.
Um, and in
I
fact,
yeah,
because of not having the funding, we're seeing a real kind of war against education, especially higher education. And we could go into a whole other topic on that
if you
one.
want to get political, we can do that sometime.
Oh yeah,
We can totally
I
knock down the education system.
yes, we can go off on all kinds of stuff like that. That would be awesome.
That's
But as you were talking about that, I was also thinking about here in not far from where I live. There was the Duke Energy, uh, the spill. Oh, I'm trying to think of what it was. This is political, but I went to a meeting where the woman who was in charge of doing all of the studies on how it impacted how it's going to impact us and the seeping into the not just the water but into the land and the soil around it and there's a picture where she dips her fingers in and it's all and it became like an iconic picture and it's not there that far anyway
tar
I can't
sands.
think of what it
Is
I
that the
want to
tar
say tar sands but that's not what it is it's
well, there's enough spillage going on up north in the tar sands, and that the tar sands is its own political catastrophe. And I
mhm.
don't mean that. I mean it's an environmental catastrophe. The fact that we are even trying to take tar or take oil out of the fucking sorry, my language. I call it tar sands. It's the oil sands, but they're up in Canada, and there's just ugh. It requires so much water waste in order to
Mhm.
provide yourself with just enough like I think it's if I'm not mistaken it's either 4 to 6 barrels of water to get 1 barrel of oil out of that stuff and then that
That's
water is literally contaminated. It is you like it costs more money to take the contaminants out of the water to it's just not worth it.
it
It's
doesn't
so
even make
bad.
any sense. It
It's not
doesn't make any
it's not
sense.
no. Well, yeah, but like, water is the thing is water is a right, but it's also a resource. And a lot of people don't realize that it is a limited resource and it's something that needs to be protected. Soil is the same way. In fact, I would argue soil is an even more limited resource because the minerals and the nutrients that you find in soils are depleted constantly. And if you farm poorly, you end up with a dust bowl, right? Can you imagine that over the world? Like the entire
Right.
world? That's what happens when there's no nutrients left, no root systems. And I mean, part of soil is the root systems of plants, and that's part of what holds it all together. We have this lovely term. It's called humus, like just kind of like the dip humus, except if you can imagine it being liquor. It is smelly. It is like peat. It it's it's the organic bits that make the soil sediments stick together, and that stuff is just oh god, that stuff will help you grow anything, and you want that. If you waste your water resources and cause contaminations to occur, you're going to lose the humus. You're going to lose your nutrients. You're going to end up filtering out these crazy amounts of water that just ends up in runoff, which turns into turbidity within the water, which is a bunch of sediment loss, and then it becomes exponentially more damaging within the area. And you always have to go back to the source. I mean, like I want to fix everything, but you can't always start with everything. You have to start with one thing in order to
Right.
build on it. It's a stepping stone thing, and
So
nothing's instant.
if we were to have kind of a almost like a dust bowl, like in a large part of the world, and that would mean that humans would not survive as well. I mean, we'd have a lot of loss of life, and as well as other living resources. If we were no longer here, and it got to that point, could the Earth
Rebuild.
kind of heal itself?
I there's a lot of discrepancy about it, but I think yes because and it's not just like if all life was gone, there would like if all life was gone, the earth would not be able to rebuild itself, unfortunately.
Right.
Not to what it was before. But if just the humans were gone, if just our industrialization and our excuse the terminology, and I'm sorry if this triggers anyone, but our rape of the environment. And it's like, oh, that sounds harsh. And like, not if you know what if you've seen what I've seen, you know, it's something like that. It's not something like that. It is happening. And it's so detrimental. And I would love it. I think plants are just waiting around to eat on all of us. You know what?
They are.
Freaking Cloverfield was a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, saw that movie, but I was like, yes, evolution. Everyone's like, oh, it was filmed poorly. I'm like, do you understand how much I think Godzilla is actually a plant? Like, I have my theory. Like, this is this type of nerdy shit that you like when you're in a lab looking at microscopes with like 5 other people. That's the type of nerdy bullshit that you just kind of comes out of your mouth. They're like, so if Godzilla exists, do you think you'd be a dinosaur? I'm like, nah, I'd be like a walking plant. What? No. It's like everyone.
Oh my, that is. See, that's the kind of like geeky talk that I want to be a part of, because in my field, you don't even want to hear. We have really dark senses of humor in my field, and I won't go there. I want that kind of geekiness.
One of my friends is a mortician, and she's and I joke with her because I said pathology earlier, and then I was like, well, actually, no, you'd have to be dead in order to be studied by a pathologist. But she was I know, like, if she was around my corner, she'd be like yelling in the other room, not necessarily. You could almost be dead. It's like, I'm not dead yet. Bro, this Monty Python skit in the making.
Earlier you had said something about the word let me put the question up. I can't. Meteorology. That was it. Meteorology. Yes. So how do geology and the weather connect with each other?
Okay. I'm going to go about this in a roundabout way. And I swear I'm going to come back.
No way. Yeah. I would never think that. That's what we do.
Hold your horses. Here we go. Okay. So meteorology is study of weather, right? You have the weatherman. Everybody hates the weatherman because his predictions are faulty. You want to know why? It's because he's not a geologist. And here's my reasoning. Okay. And I say this with due fact. I'm probably going to send this video to my cousin who works with a certain very large meteorology firm, oceanography, does a bunch of stuff worldwide. She's very smart and she's very good at her job.
Gee, I think I might know what you're talking about, but I won't say it.
I mean, it's not Moses, but it's anyway. Anyway, so
I'm sorry, that was so good.
That jumps in the whole skeptic thing. That's just great. No, so a meteorologist looks at weather patterns based off of high and low pressure systems, from atmospheric measurements, from temperature, from barometric pressure, from all sorts of little instruments that are used to measure atmospheric stuff, right? Meteorology does atmospheric weather, right? Well, here's the thing. The Earth does not get its heat only from the sun. Mm-hmm. So we have to also recognize that there is stuff coming up from the ground. When things come up from the ground, like around oceans and whatnot, you end up with these random humidity mixtures, and anyway, it becomes a almost incomprehensible mess whenever you're trying to look at weather patterns, because you don't know. It's like Pokemon battles. You don't know which one's going to outsource the other. Like, oh, this giant high pressure system's coming in, but you might have a hard enough cold patch right here that makes it go whoop, and then it's just like that wave just disappears, and you'll be like, we're gonna get snow, and it like might rain a little, like, and then it's like sunny the rest of the day. It's like, don't trust the meteorologist. But dude, like they're doing the best they can. Okay.
Yes.
But, the big thing with meteorology is that they have to look at climate patterns in certain areas. Climate is the study of weather over a long span of time.
Mhm.
And in order to get that data, not only is it just like pulling, old videos from weathermen back in like 1950s, but you're also going to be pulling sources from the earth itself to describe the weather of your particular region or your latitude and longitude within the earth. So you're going to have sources like if you're in Greenland, you're going to have lovely ice cores, which measure the isotopes, the delta 18 to delta 16 oxygen isotopes in the atmosphere, which will tell you how wet or how like it tells you like the heat index if it was hotter year or colder year. It can also tell you about El Nino years and all that kind of stuff. You can measure tree rings, growth patterns of trees that are found within areas. And I do mean live trees, but I also do mean dead trees, like the super lithified ones, the ones that are a couple million years old. You could be like, oh yes, this tree grew, and these are the weather patterns within years, not like 100,000 years, but like, hey, this tree lived at this point in time, and this is the exact year pattern, like year by year pattern of weather within this chunk of time. And you're just like, whoa, like just think about that. It's like we're looking 200 million years ago at a very specific set of like 50 years, and you're just like, I know a lot about this one time span. It's like, what do I do with it? Well, you hold on to it, because at some point in time, you're going to come across a tree ring from over here, and it's going to overlap just perfectly with like 4 or 5 or even like 30 of those other tree rings. So those end up creating what are called floating time charts or timelines. This is something that Forrest, the renegade science teacher, does with teeth. The enamel of deer teeth from the paleo time. So like I think he does Oligocene. I don't think that's right. Paleocene. I think it's the Paleocene. I haven't read his paper, and I'm a bad friend. But he does this with teeth. One of my professors in school did this with speleothems, which are the fancy word for stalagmites from caves. Stalactites wouldn't show it because they're hollow on the inside and like let the drips come out. But the speleothems, the stalagmites, they have these perfect lines that show when there are flooding events and when it's wetter or colder wetter or drier because of how much mud and how much calcite or aragonite, depending on where you are and what formations are creating the caves. That thickness is telling you a climate event that creates another type of floating chart. And guess what? Those line up with the tree rings, and those line up with the active ice cores, and those line up with the isotopes, and they line up with and I didn't even get into this, but like what am I thinking of? Not coral reefs. Well, reefs, yes, but foraminifera, which are plankton, basically. They float and they eat the things, and then they are made of calcareous materials, and they die, and they create a layer on in sediment in really tropical regions. But depending on the blooms of how many plankton there are and how thick it is versus how thin it is, the water changes temperature. And just the slightest change in temperature can kill off a shit ton of things. So you can see giant changes in temperature based off of random sandstone, because the sandstone actually has these giant pieces, especially calcareous sandstone. So the ones that have a bunch of these itty bitty little microscopic, this is the microscopic, the micro paleontology I was talking about. And you can find out climate from that, and that actually creates an even larger time span. Raven, it's okay, come here. Sorry, she's worried. She is worried about.
Like you're getting excited. That if my dog thinks that I am upset, if I like talk animated, he thinks I'm upset, and he gets all nervous. So,
but yeah, so there's all these different ways that you can measure climate through time. And I mean, and then you can get into the big stuff, which is stratigraphy in rock, which goes back in time. But of course, your percent of error. Sorry, I have this is happening.
Aww.
Right. She just wants to be right here. But so I'm a little distracted. But but yeah, so like you end up with like larger percentiles of error. Now, that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that we might be off by a couple hundred years or a couple 100 million years, depending on 100 million seems a little excessive. Maybe a couple million just itself. Like a couple 100 million is a very far reach. But yeah, it's that climate, all that data is put into that one pinpoint of that one place on Earth that you're standing. And whatever correlates with that one area is the climate patterns of that area. Then those climate patterns are what you use to predict what's happening right now around you. And then the weatherman looks at these charts and he goes, well, that was a long time ago. I'll say this. And that is that's why I argue that every news station needs a geologist.
I like that. Plus, just the shape of the Earth itself impacts so greatly.
I am a bad person because I love saying the Earth. Like, you know what? I will look dead at the camera and be like, the Earth is not a sphere. It's also not flat, mind you. It's not flat. The Earth is like a deflated pea. With water on it, which makes it spherical.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
But that's like one of those like a dried out pea, little wasabi pea. Like it's just that's what the shape of Earth is.
That is so cool though. It's like I can see that. I can visualize. Yeah. I can think of other things that we could call it too, but I won't.
I mean, people could say it's a dodecahedron if they want to, or they could say it's a D20 dice. Granted, the points are a little too perfect. But then the conspiracy theorists will come out and be like, yes, that's why humans built the pyramids. I don't know what that has anything to do with anything, but that's kind of cool anyway. And I'm just kind of getting off topic.
Ancient aliens. We all know it's ancient aliens. Come on now.
Well, now the ancient aliens is, and you know what? Yeah, I'll just say it. Ancient aliens is, the show itself is a disregardment to anyone who's not white being able to think. And
we talked about this last time too. We always
I am absolutely I have no respect for the people that created Ancient Aliens, because all they're doing is taking every single society that was not influenced by British control and saying that they could not have done the things that they did without white man's help.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, aliens.
Yes, that's so true.
So it's so stupid, but I will stand on that. I will stand on that pedestal and I will scream it to the top of my lungs until somebody realizes white men are not the center of attention and should not be the center of attention. Sorry, white guys, we love you, but you know you're a little much sometimes.
Okay. Yes, they are. We would like to have them just step back a little bit, have a seat.
But you guys just can have a seat. Fine, just show. You don't have to explain it to us. You don't have to mansplain it to us. We see what's happening too.
Exactly. So you were talking about the stalactites and stalagmites. This is so far off the topic that I was going to go, but you made me think about one of my most. Oh, I just love it. The Carlsbad Caverns.
Yes.
Which, oh my god.
Oh, Carlsbad in New Mexico. So nice. So cool. I love those caverns. And you know that they just found another, like, gosh, I think it's almost another half mile of trails underneath there, like another half mile of cavern. They haven't opened it up to people yet, but I'm just saying, like, it just keeps going.
It does.
I love it.
If you have not been, anyone who is viewing this, anyone in the chats, if you have not been to Carlsbad Caverns, you have to do it. Like, you have to. It's like it's a requirement to be alive. You just have to.
So Carlsbad is incredible. Don't get me wrong. There are some places where if you are a little bit claustrophobic, I highly understand. It is a long walk down and a long walk back up, and you will feel like you are descending into hell if you are religious, and I'm sorry about that. If you don't want to do that, if you want to be able to go into a cave that's a little more spacious and a little less claustrophobic-y, you have this lovely cave that's in Kentucky called Mammoth Cave. And it is nice and large and it's huge cavern, and it's just spacious and it just goes. And then it has like some winding off little bits and pieces, but like getting into that cave is I think it's maybe the size of a doorway. It's not smaller than that. So it's a little more breathable for those that get nervous. But this is coming from someone who has weaseled her way into mine shafts that have collapsed. So I can't fit in them now, but I used to be able to.
Well, I don't like tight spaces all that often, but when it comes to Carlsbad Caverns, it's like my brain just goes, "But you're here. You just have to. You're gonna have to get over it."
Have you seen the quartz caves in? Have you seen pictures of the quartz caves in Mexico itself? The ones that are.
I've seen pictures, but I've never been there. I would love to be there.
The one that's like you have. First off, you have to wear like full on hazmat suits because the air in there is. I want to say septic, but it's sulfuric.
Yeah.
And the crystals though are like the size of houses.
And you can
in all directions.
You can only go in for a certain amount of time, and then you have to go out because it could kill you.
Yeah, so that's why you wear the hazmat suits, and then on top of that, it gets flooded. Like I think it's flooded maybe 2/3 of the year. So like when you go in, there's a chance that you're like, I'm in, and then you see water, I'm out. It's an ongoing thing. But so I mean, caves are cool. Caves are fun. I have lots of stories involving caves that I probably shouldn't tell because that means that a professor has put me in danger before. But not without willingly going into danger themselves, which is good. But I have stories about snakes and alligators. I have stories about a stalactite that fell over when it wasn't supposed to, and then we had to like heave our way out of it. I have a story about me getting stuck in a cave when I was little, which might have led to this whole thing about me liking rocks, but you would have thought it the opposite because I was stuck for a long time. I was like 11 and I got stuck in a cave in Missouri.
Oh my gosh.
All by myself and I got stuck.
Oh my gosh. I used to go cave exploring when I was little, and my mom told me to get me to stop. She told me about some kids that had gone into caves, and they one of them fell. Like there was all of a sudden a big hole. They couldn't see it, and one fell, and the whole townspeople had to come and help get this kid out, and that was to scare me from. You don't go into caves that you could end up not ever coming out.
So there are iron bars and a lock in the cave that I got stuck in that no longer allow anyone to go into that cave because there was this what I had deemed the slip and slide, which mind you, to this day I'm just like that was the most fun slip and slide I've ever been on. But like you go up and over, it's like you like weasel your way up and then over this lip. And then if you slide yourself, you can scoot along the edge of this like kind of snaky, windy back thing. And then you can get into another cavern. Well, the snaky, windy back thing, no one's ever gone down the sides of it. And I went one side and I just went, whoop, and turns out it was about a 20-foot drop. Not like drop, but like it was a 20-foot slide and it was slimy. And I was standing in a puddle. Like there was no like, and it was just kind of coned out and you could see that water kind of like would go out, but like, it's probably like a pea-sized hole where it like rushed out, not rushed, but just kind of did its thing. And I mean, I was up in a mountain, so it's not like I had to worry about tides or a river just randomly coming in, but I was just like, I just suddenly yelled out, I'm like, I'm stuck. And my friends left and they were like, and then they're like, hold on, we'll be back. And I was like, cool. Like an hour goes by. Just 2 hours. And then randomly I hear, the fire department's here.
Oh my gosh.
But the thing is, there was no one on the fire department that was small enough to fit in until like the next shift. So there was a lot of just yelling back and forth. How you doing? I'm fine. We don't have anyone to help you. So what are you doing? Mom's in the corner just crying. Just
Aw.
I'm just like sitting there. My feet are wet. They're like, do you need food? I was like, I'm thirsty. It's like, don't drink the water. 11-year-old me, I'm like, no, it's muddy.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna drink the water.
So was there enough light in there? I mean,
Oh God,
or
no.
did you
I
have
had,
like a
I had like a headlamp and stuff because I'd gone exploring. But yeah, I eventually one of the dads of one of my friends weaseled his way in and slipped me a rope. And like I knew my knots because I was a Girl Scout and I knew how to tie a knot. So I threw a knot on and I literally I like lassoed it around one leg and then I wrapped around my waist and I was like, I am attached. And then he tried to pull and he couldn't.
Oh no.
I don't know if y'all know this, but I am 6 feet tall. When I was 11, I was probably sitting at almost 5'1", 5'2". I was a pretty
Wow.
big kid. However, I was a twig, which is how I got into places. And that's unfortunate for anyone who has broad shoulders. They cannot get me out. So it ended up being,
Oh my
it
gosh.
ended up being like they got a longer rope and kept pulling. And I just kind of like wedged my way up and like army crawled, but it took a while. And
Wow.
a lot of bruising on my elbows and my knees. And it was just, and my mom was like, you were never allowed in a cave ever again. And then I went to college and I went into all the caves.
Her worst nightmare came to life.
I mean,
Oh my gosh.
it was funny. She's just like, you're going to be a businesswoman. You're going to be a doctor. I'm like, heck yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. A doctor rocks. Yeah. Oh no. Kate, I've been in a bunch of caves with the cave guides. I've been in a bunch of like those touristy caves, but I've also been invited into a bunch of private caves because studies. So it's yeah. I have a lot of cave stories. That's just the one that I think I'd collected rocks since I was little, and my mom always had to check my pockets whenever I put stuff in the laundry. But that getting stuck in a cave was probably one of the solidifying moments of my life. And the thing is, I wasn't scared. I was just sat in the dark. It was really peaceful. It was wet, but it was really peaceful.
One of my sons is totally that way. And he hasn't grown out of it. And from the time he was little, he would bring rocks home. And I would say, okay, rocks should stay outside. They don't need to be inside. He didn't understand that. I had rocks. I would find rocks everywhere. He's now 17. I still find rocks everywhere. So who knows? You just never know. So let's talk about geology and the age of the earth.
Okay.
Because this is fun. I love talking about this.
I always feel like we shoot for so much and we never get to everything. So that's fine. That's okay. So age of the earth, right? We're talking about if I'm not mistaken, it's 4.85. Hold on. I always get the exact decimals wrong because I never talk about this anymore.
You mean it's not 6,000 years old?
No, it's not 6,000 years old. Yeah, so 4.543. Sorry, I had to double check. 4.543, because sometimes I do 4.54, and then I think it was 4.546 according to some physicists a while ago. Some geophysicists a while ago. The number kind of bounces, not a lot, but enough where you're just like, yes, this is the Earth, because we'll find an older rock that has another uranium dating that tells us the age. But yeah, the Earth is most definitely not 6,000 years old, because I found a Clovis point that is more than 6,000 years old when I was in college, and I was like, yes, those creationists, they had me. No, I'm completely joking. I have been fighting the concept of the young age Earth since I was really, really little. Every time I'd come across someone that's like, no, the Earth is not that old, darling. And I'd be like, you are stupid. And I don't mean to say that nowadays, but like as a little kid, I would say that to an adult and it did not go over very well. So I learned to be a little more cautious with how I said things. And I was like, show me proof. They show me a Bible. I'd walk away. Mm-hmm. It was just like, if they had anything other than this, I would be like, now we can talk. And I do mean, like, if Graham Hancock decides to like throw something out there and they're like, this is proof as well, I'm like, Graham Hancock is a fraud. Do not listen to him. Did you see Okay, so I have to say this because Archeo Wolf was talking about this the other day, and he's a good buddy of mine. Did you see that there was a recent discovery of obsidian, a recent discovery of stone tools that are more than 1,000,000 years old?
No, I have not. That's crazy. Are you
Right.
serious?
I don't have all the information, and I was sent the article like 3 days ago, and I still haven't read it because I'm a bad person. But what I get from the gist is basically this article went out, got published, and within an hour, Graham Hancock was like, or Graham Hancock or Ron White was like, "This is proof of aliens!" Like, I mean, immediately, and I was like,
Oh
like
my gosh.
he didn't even let it. He didn't even let it get like it wasn't even an hour old before he said that.
Ugh.
Like the
Oh my
article's
gosh.
long enough that you need like more than an hour to read and understand the complexity of it. And like within moments, he was just like aliens. I'm just like no. So yeah, so Archeo Wolf did a lovely video discussing this, and it's God, it's a thing. But yes, the tools were obsidian, which is a extremely delicate and fine precision style, like type of rock to make these tools out of. Like using chert is one thing, but like using chert and flint and that kind of thing, that's one thing. But obsidian is glass, right? So it takes the most delicate and most precise movements to do this. So if over 1,000,000 years ago there was, I don't know if it was Homo erectus. I did not. Sorry, Skeptic Haven. I do not know. Yeah, there are trees older than that. But I do know that it means that there were practiced, and I mean not just like moderately practiced, I mean like well practiced artisan um, abilities of creating point spearheads that were stored in a cache, which a cache is spelled CACHE. It's basically the storage of a bunch of tools or a bunch of goods that people can come back to later to collect and use. Whenever you are a nomadic society, you tend to have caches in certain spots hidden away so that you can find them. They also use that, like, it's the whole concept of like treasure hunting. I mean, like, whole thing about like pirates can't just keep their booty all on the ship. They got to have a little hidey hole somewhere, right? So that's what a cache is. And that's where that concept, but yeah, like Brian, yeah, like I also can flint nap, and I have played with obsidian before, but holy crap, you hit it the wrong way, the whole thing fucking shatters. But you hit it the right way, and this thing becomes, obsidian is capable of becoming finer and more precise of an instrument than a scalpel. It is crazy efficient as far as material goes, and that is the fact that they've found this cache, and the obsidian is sharp as hell and just in great condition. First off, it's not like they just like discovered it randomly. They've been at this site for like 20 years. They've been kind of hopping around in this area, knowing that there's stuff. They're finding stuff all the time. But this cache was a recent discovery, probably in the last year. Kept it quiet for a while because you don't the moment you find it, you don't want to let everyone know because it's going to take a couple days to excavate it and get all the data from it. But once they have all the data, write the paper and produce it, you end up with this wealth of information that is, God, it changes, it alters your entire concept of archaeology and anthropology. But you want to know how they knew how old it was?
How?
Because obsidian's a rock. They know the age of the obsidian, and you are able to detect the napping of it, the striking of it, and the breaking of rock based off of some crazy spectrometry stuff that I will fail to explain to you because it's not my chosen like niche. It's oh God, it's so specific, but you can see like the rings and the ribs of a flaked point, the flake that's been taken out, and you can see like dirt patterns and the sudden intake of air, and like at that point it like anything that was airtight and then suddenly like became open, any chemicals or not chemicals, any minerals that were not fully, what's the word that they use in chemistry, not full. Like when there's an atom that doesn't have enough electrons and it grabs an electron and it's happy, content. I don't know. I don't remember what the word is for that.
I
But
know what you're talking about, but I couldn't. That
I
was
know,
a long
right?
time
I
ago.
know the word for it. I can't remember it. But when those minerals are content, or if they weren't content and then they suddenly open up and they become content, that atmospheric isotope or whatever electron hit whatever mineral was there can be detected, and you'll actually know the age of the atmosphere within the bubble that is created from the opening of this flake point. And it's really fascinating.
No, that's cool, because I always thought, like, when people would say that type of stuff, I'm like, yeah, but the rock was there how long before the person came there to. But that's cool.
It's not just that one flake. It's like there's a bunch of these little naps, and if they all measure the same number and then like one measures different, that normally means that it's been used, and then there was something wrong with it, and they popped another, like they made another flake or two off, which means that there was like a discrepancy within the tool. So then you're like, oh, cool, this tool's been effective. And then it wasn't. And then they fixed it. And then it was great. It's just like there's so much information you can grab from it. It's
homeostasis. Just I bet you're right.
What?
Is it homeostasis?
Is it?
That's
I know
that's
when an ecosystem is in.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's not
an atom. When it's an atom, like when it's an electron, or when it's a molecule, that maybe stabilized. Is it stabilized? That sounds right. Maybe
that does sound right.
Stable.
Stable. I know it as happy. That's how I remember it. When you would, when you would do the
negatives balance, the positives were happy.
We're happy. Yep. That's all that I can remember from early chemistry. Stable is a word.
Hey, you know what? I told you guys, I'm super smart until I'm not. Okay. I know I have the limits. They get reached, and nothing else fits up here.
We always know that we're going to sound stupid at some point throughout multiple times throughout the night.
No, I fully expect to sound stupid, and I wait for someone, like I will say something that is not a word, like the freaking like mountain building. I was like, I didn't remember the study of mountains. Like I know what ORO, like as a pretext word is, like as a core, as a root as a root word is. Like, I know what oro, it means orogeny. It goes into orogenic events. Like that's I don't know. I just didn't think of it, and it's just it was just anyway.
See, you forget words like that. Sometimes I forget like simple words like the THE. What's the word I'm trying to find?
I tried to do the root thing, and I couldn't find that for a second. That was hard. I was just like the thing, it's the word within the word. That's not the thing. That's a tree.
Yeah.
Bottom of the tree. It's a root. Anyway.
So we are getting close to the end. Yeah. I can't believe it. I still have so many more questions.
I told you we have too much content.
I know.
I told you we can make a whole ass series of this. Just like
I know. We really can. And we go through some really cool rabbit holes. I love rabbit holes.
Oh yeah.
Because you can learn so much more from the rabbit holes sometimes.
Did you know there's an entire study of paleontology and paleobotany that studies just rabbit holes? Like literal ones that are in rock, and ones that are in ones that are like active, or ones that have been abandoned, using rabbit holes, because rabbits disturb sites in archaeology. Just want to throw that out there. They like to drag shit around. But burrows. There's an entire study of paleontology that studies burrows, just burrows, nothing else, just burrowing animals. That's it. And it's really cool. And I don't know anything about it except that it exists. Actually, no, I do know a fair amount about it, only because a lot of burrowing animals, or at least the burrows that I would study, ended up being close to shorelines that would create crazy, sludgy, marshy environments that would create chert. And chert is what you use to flip nap. And then that kind of goes into its own thing. But that's the only thing. That's the only reason why I know there's an entire ass study of burrows, is because that's a thing.
Well, Oh my gosh, this is so okay.
I'm
There's
so
so many
sorry.
more things. What? This is going to be a really, really stupid question, but I have to say it. What do you think is something that you can wrap it up with a nice bow? What is like your closing
Uh,
thought that you have?
don't look at geology as the study of rocks. Look at it as the study of our existence, of our place in the universe. Um, Everything that you come across has a geologic source. And knowing that you have a source means that you have a starting point for whatever you want to learn. I think
I
that's
love
probably the
that.
best way to wrap it up.
I love that. That even made me think of more stuff, and I have
Oh
to stop.
no!
It's like,
Till next time.
I know. I want to learn something. I was that one in school that I wanted to take every subject because everything is like a new world that opens up. And it's like, but I want to take this and I want to take this. And then, you have to focus. My dad used to tell me, you can't, if you take too many things, if you do too many things, you're
You're
not good at any of them.
Well, yeah, so,
Yeah.
like, the whole jack of all trades, master of none. However, no one ever
Yeah.
remembers the second part, which is better than being the master of one. You might be the master, like, you could be the master of one thing, but being good at a bunch of little things helps move, like, it helps broaden your view set, and your focus goes from being, like, having just, like, this central focus to
Yes.
being able to broaden your view out, which allows you to see in other people's perspectives, as well as being able to do
Mm-hmm.
other things, or to apply what you know to other subjects. And I love doing that. I once connected, and we don't even have to go into this story. I'm gonna leave it so the audience has to, like, figure out what I'm saying. I once connected sewing, mind you, like sewing and
Mm-hmm.
knitting, and, like, being a household mom, to Genghis Khan. See if you can figure it out.
I just had all kinds of thoughts come into my head. So, but I will not say it either. We'll just have it. That will be everyone's assignment. And
It's
for those of
tell
you,
me what sewing has to do with Genghis Khan, and we'll figure that out.
yeah, let's have a whole show sewing Genghis Khan. I know.
Oh God, no! It's like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Like, it's just a thing. It's just this applies to this, applies to this, and then you end up with Genghis Khan at the end. And yeah, it's just, there's a thing, and the Silk Road might have a little bit to do with it, but also not. Just blow y'all's minds. You're like, everyone's like thinking, oh God, cheese. Yes, I just said the word cheese. That might have something to do with it, or it might not. Who knows? Try and tell me if it does.
Oh my gosh, I love having you on. I want you, like, I could just talk to you forever. And so I want to, like, shrink down to a little size and fit, like, in your bag.
Oh
And
God,
then you just
yeah.
carry me around with you everywhere and I can just listen to you all the time.
No, my boss has this whole concept. He wants to he keeps pitching the idea of, like, having our security cameras at work. He's like, can I just put a few of them on you? And I was like, why?
Yes.
And he was just like,
You would.
because you do weird shit. And I'm just like,
Yeah. It would be so good. It would make for a great, like, not even like a sitcom. It would be better than that because it would be educational. It would be like a
it would be educational, but
docu.
also quite foolish. I
Yes.
have done some really stupid stuff in the office to get, like, answers that I didn't realize I wanted.
It could be what we could make up a new word, a docu comedy.
A docu-comedy. It's a comedy.
It's a comedy. Oh gosh.
I
If
love
you
it.
guys
Comedy.
are enjoying this as much as we are, because obviously we're having a good time. If you guys are enjoying it like we are, there's a couple things that you can do to help support us. Like, you can like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, all those good things. Doesn't cost you a dime. Or you can support us by becoming a patron. And our patrons get special perks. I want to thank our current patrons: Deneen Murphy, Dan and D, Michael Wiseman, Kathy Cotton, Cindy Plaza, Aaron Coalson, Phil Calderone, Deborah Grace, and myself. I want to thank the producers, Wes, Phil, and Kat, and the booking team, Wes, Raymond, Ellie, and Correa. We have other shows: Secular Soapbox, Women Atheist Unload, Global Atheist, and the Bible Says What? And There might be something else coming up, but I'm not gonna say what it is. Just keep watching. Maybe you might see what I'm talking about. In the meantime, everyone always remember to think critically. Good night, everybody.